Well, what I like to do is I would like to show you how to make a set of jumper cables that you won't ever need to replace. You build these, and these will last your lifetime, and you can pass them on to your children. My dad made a set of these probably about the time I was born, and the only difference was his clamps were a solid copper with teeth like that. But I was able to find these 500 amp ground clamps, welder's ground clamps, 500 amp for $4 and change on the internet. And I'll try to remember to put a link as to where I found them. But I did a search for welding clamps. As you can see, this opens real good and wide. They open real wide. Clamp on any battery terminal anywhere. They've got a real good copper braid in here that ties both sides together. So it's not like your cheaper cables that, even though they got little copper jaws on both sides, it's only one side that actually conducts. So I really like these clamps, I really do. And like I said, they were only like $4.71. So, like I said, my dad had made up a set of these, and I remember these ever since I was a little kid. And I'd try to use a cheap set of jumper cables, and he said, "What are you wasting your time and your money for there, son? Get these out. By golly, these will carry the load." Now, these are 1/0. And for those of you who don't know what that means is that's a hell of a damn piece of wire. But because it's welder's cable, and you got to buy this pretty much at a welder's shop, this welder's cable is very flexible because it's made of braided wire, not just wire that's twisted together like that, okay? And my local welder supply place will attach these copper lugs on there. You buy the lugs, and they actually attach them. They've got a crimper, a die-like thing. You lay that in there and fold it over, and they hit it with a 2-pound sledgehammer and beat that copper down into that braided wire. And I asked them, I said, "Does that ever work loose?" He said, "We never had it work loose, using it for welding." And I know good and well myself that I sure as heck ain't going to use jumper cables as often as I would use, a welder. But I can always take my propane torch, heat this up, put a little flux in there, and fill that with solder later if I want to. And the way these clamps work here is you've got a brass fitting right here, and that appears to be copper. And we attach our wire or our cable to that right there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this, notice how I'm going to run this wire right up through this handle, okay? And then I'll bolt it in place right there. I'll wrap me some tape around it right there just to help identify, because I bought some red tape. So I'll put red tape around it to signify positive, and the other one I'll do with black tape. But all I got to do here is this makes it really simple since they put these ends on here for me. All I got to do is take that nut off of there. Put that on. And all I got to do is do this 4 times, and my ends are put on. And I'll guarantee you something. This will be the finest set of jumper cables money could possibly buy. But I do want to tell you, they ain't cheap. Now, I went ahead and bit the bullet, and I spent money to buy 2 pieces 20 foot long. And at 20 foot long, that's 40 feet of wire. And this wire is $2 a running foot. So we're talking $80 I spent just on wire. And then these copper ends were $2.97 each. Make a long story short, counting the roughly $20 I've got here, we're talking $130 for a set of jumper cables. And folks, I know that ain't doing it cheap. But I also know that I probably spent more in my lifetime than $130 buying jumper cables. End up going bad, end up corroding, and just end up being worthless. So that right there will be a jumper cable from hell. I'll be back in a few minutes after I get these taped up and get all of them tied on and show them to you. Like I say, they're 20 foot long, so it's a little hard to show you on the computer desk. Well, folks, here's my jumper cables. They're 20 foot long. They're made out of 1/0 copper wire, welder's cable, so it's braided wire, it's flexible. And they reach all the way from right here all the way out there to that blue two-wheel car. They're 20 foot long, and by golly, they'll do the trick now. This set of jumper cables will outlive me, outlive my kids, taking care of my grandchildren and use them for the rest of their life. It ain't doing it cheap whenever you pay big money, but sometimes doing it right is better than doing it cheap. Ain't no telling how much money in my lifetime I've spent on jumper cables, and ain't no telling how many times I've told myself to build a set like this and never got around to it. Well, I'm telling you folks, especially if you're young folks, spend the money now. Now, I didn't have to make them 20 foot, I could have made them 12 foot. And at the welding supply places, they have a copper tube where they can extend this wire. It's like a coupling, just like in plumbing. And they can actually extend the length of the wire later. They can add more to it. So I strongly urge you that before you go out and pay $20 for a cheap set of cables, go out there and spend 30 or 40. Build yourself a set that's maybe, 10 or 12 foot long, and use them. If you find later on in time you need a longer set, then extend them. But I'm here to tell you, I wish I'd done this years ago. But now, this is good cables. These clamps are rated for 500 amps. And ain't no telling, I think the 1/0 cable's rated for 250 amp if you're 100 feet away or something. Anyway, a hell of a lot better than any jumper cables you're going to buy on the market. Folks, thank you for watching. Y'all have a wonderful day, and I'll better tomorrow. Bye.